diving into some college hoops and some college baseball. So I'm going to turn some basketball over to Kevin over in Kevin's corner here.
So I think the story of the day in hoops is UConn losing at a Marquette in a very hard fought game, essentially a 2 point game, and UConn missed a shot to tie it, and then Hurley gets kicked out. But hard fought game, tough game, and then Florida going to Kentucky and winning by 7. A game that they led by 17 at half. So Florida continues to play well, and I just referenced those two teams because to me, that definitely would put Florida in as the top 1 seed and drop UConn, I think, to a 2. Just the strength of the conferences. Florida has 6 losses on the season now. UConn only 4. That being said, Florida's not lost in like 2 months, and they've been rolling. So I think Florida moves up to the 1 seed, and they've not lost since they inserted Boogie Flan as a point guard. And then I think that would put UConn as a 2. And then Houston won today at Oklahoma State in a game that they trailed at half. I think they're a 2 seed still, Houston, but they've shown some vulnerability, including a couple of weeks ago they lost 3 in a row. But I would put them as a 2 seed. Iowa State won today by 21. I would keep them on that 2 seed line, and in that aspect. Going back to the top 4 teams that would be 1 seeds: Duke, Arizona, Michigan, and Florida. Interesting thing about these teams is all 4 of these teams are top 10 offensive efficiency and top 10 defensive efficiency teams. And Florida was last year top 10 offense and top 10 defense, won the national championship. So I really think that these 4 teams are right now your best teams in college basketball, and I think that they're likely to one of those teams is likely to win a national championship. I don't know if we'll have all 4 number 1 seeds make it to the Final Four again like we did last year, but it would not surprise me if we did. The last 2 seed right now I would have in there would be Michigan State. They're 25-5. Now they play at Michigan tomorrow, so that could be a tough game. And there's not going to be any harm in losing that game, but that could, if somebody wins that's right below them, they might bump them up into that 2 seed line. But I would still go Michigan State with a 2 seed. So right now I would have Duke, Arizona, Michigan, Florida, UConn, Houston, Iowa State, and Michigan State as my top 8 seeds. Any thoughts on hoops and that stuff, D-Mac?
I line up exactly with you on the top 8 teams. I do have a question for you. Let's talk SEC. If you had to guess how many SEC teams get into March Madness, where would you be right now?
Ooh, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, and I think I went with 10 teams. Let me look here. Another good win today for the SEC. Since you want to mention the SEC, Arkansas went on the road, played at Missouri, a team that I think gets in. Arkansas played without their freshman point guard, Darius Acuff, and they got a win. He's got some tweaked his ankle, so they were just kind of giving him some time off. So let me say I would start with, I think if you have a winning record in the SEC, you probably should be in the tournament. So if I break it off at that, so Florida, Arkansas, Alabama, Vanderbilt, good win today, Tennessee. They're all in. That's 4. Tennessee, same in. Texas A&M, big win this week against Kentucky. They're 10-7. They're in. Georgia, 10-8. I think they're in. Missouri, 10-8. I think they're in the tournament. Kentucky, even with a loss today, they're 10-8 in the conference. I would put them in. And then the question mark is Texas to me. They're 9-8 in league play, 18-12 overall. And do they get in the tournament? They played a tough non-conference. I think they're in. And so if you put Texas in, that gives you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It gives you 10 teams. And then squarely on the bubble is Auburn, They're 16-14, tough non-conference schedule. I think Auburn's got to win tonight at Alabama and one or two games in the conference tournament to get into the tournament. So I would cut it off at 10. Basically, the teams with 500 or above in the SEC, I think, are all the teams that are deserving. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I know going into the season, I probably had 12 teams penciled in. And yeah, I mean Texas to me is also a bubble team. I think they need to win tonight and probably need to win a game in the SEC tournament too. So, Auburn, I don't man, it's if they win tonight and end up 17-14 overall, that's tough. They're going to need to do a few things in the tournament. And then, I could see a Texas and Auburn maybe being able to win the SEC tournament if you've got to pick a bubble team or, a team that's not getting in without winning the tournament. I have no faith in Oklahoma, Mississippi State, Carolina, Ole Miss, or LSU to win the SEC tournament.
Not at all.
You look at LSU, they're essentially 13 games back. Playing right now, they are up at halftime over A&M, but I would not surprise me if Bucky Ball got the win in the PMAC today on senior night for the Tigers.
I agree with you. Just a little more there. Texas and Auburn. Texas is 39 in the net rankings. They're 4-6 quad one games. So again, I think that puts them in. Another thing that hurts Auburn is they are 2-7 in quad one games, and they're 40th in the net, which speaks to their strength of schedule. But that 2-7 in quad one games will hurt them. They are 3-3 on neutral site games, and let's see. I said they're 2-7. That's road top 10. So they're actually 4-11 in quad ones, 4-2 in quad twos. So that hurts them to me. Texas is 7-9 in quad one games. So I think Texas, being almost 500 in your quad one games, I think should get you in. Speaks to the tough schedule that Auburn plays, but I think being 4-11 in those games hurts them. I think Auburn's got a lot of work to do to get in. I would have put them in the tournament before the season. And even 2 weeks ago, I would have put them in the tournament. But the stretch that they've had, where they've lost some tough, close games, that's the thing is in close games, they've just not been very good. They've not won those close games, not really any of them to speak of. So I just don't see how you can put them in. Another interesting game this weekend, just for seeding purposes. And, again, you're a conference team and a weak conference. So what does it do if you don't win your conference tournament to this team? St. Louis lost to George Mason on the road by 30. So that could be a game that impacts their seed line, in my opinion. Got some good games tonight. Duke and Carolina are playing right now. And then you also have Texas Tech and BYU. That's an interesting game to me. Tech has to bounce back after losing their midweek game. They lost to TCU this week. They have battled themselves up to a 3-4 seed. Excuse me. So I think big game for Tech tonight at BYU if they want to compete to be in that 3 seed. And then you also have, again, Alabama-Auburn tonight. So Arizona goes on the road to Colorado. I think Arizona probably wins that game. So some other interesting games that could come into play tonight, just from a seed standpoint. March Madness is essentially here. We've got conference tournament season next weekend. I'm really not a believer that conference tournaments. I think they play less of a factor in how this stuff rolls, unless you take a team like Florida. If they continue on a roll and win that SEC tournament, it could drive their seed lineup just because they've won so many games in a row. And again, I think they're a 1 seed, but could they end up the number 1 overall seed? I do think they could. I would put Duke there right now, but I think Florida could end up that number 1 overall seed, and Arizona. I think those 3 teams all could be in contention for the number 1 overall seed, depending on how things play out over the next week. Any more thoughts on hoops?
Yeah, I'm with you on conference tournaments. It really only affects mid majors and bubble teams. You look at St. Louis getting blown out. Their coach maybe should not have declined the K-State phone call now after a brutal loss like that. Yeah, that's kind of my final thoughts. Some bubble teams have a chance. I think in the mid majors, you're going to see a lot of teams who won their regular season conferences not go on and win conference tournaments. So, looking forward to good hoops next weekend, and then guess now we can head over to baseball, and I'll get things started with the Texas USC Upstate game last night. Texas won 14-2. They're 13-0 right now. Mendoza hit a home run for them. Rodriguez, Becerra, Anthony Pack, and Casey Borba all also homered. What amazes me is this Texas pitching staff. Ruger Riojas is now 4-0, went 6 innings, gave up 4 hits, 1 run, 12 strikeouts, no walks, and did all of that in 80 pitches. You're seeing a trend with these Texas starters on the mound. They're only going, 65 to 85 pitches a night because they're able to get through 5 to 7 innings on those numbers. So I want to see, as they get extended out a little bit, pitch count and SEC play, how they continue to play. Man, that they look like the best team in the SEC right now. And then Missouri had a rain delay yesterday, resumed today. Picked up in the 5th inning, but these guys were down 12-1 going into the 4th inning of this game, and they came back and won 13-12. A three from the 4th inning on, they scored every inning 3, 1, 4, 2, and 2. Sam Rosand, the freshman pitcher, came in and got the win in 2 1/3 innings of relief and 5 punch outs. He was a guy that Drew Dickinson brought over with him. He was a Virginia commit. And then with Drew Dickinson coming over, he flipped his commitment to Missouri and has kind of struggled a little bit. So it was nice to see the young freshman have a nice outing. LSU had a huge game last night against Sacramento State, where they won 15-4. Just about everybody homered. Curiel had one, Milam had one, Aaron Beatty had one, Jake Brown had 3 home runs, and his first 3 at-bats were all home runs. Kason Evans, didn't walk anybody last night, went 5 2/3 with 9 punch outs. And then the Tigers followed that up with a loss today. A few other things. Auburn had another run rule game, 10-0 over Winthrop. Jake Marciano got the win again for them. Went 6 innings, struck out 6, walked 1, only gave up 3 hits. So this Auburn team, is pitching really well. The bats are working for them right now. Chris Rimbert is back in the lineup, which is a huge plus for them and gives them some position versatility. You've got a guy like McCrane who came in and has really stepped up in Rembert's absence due to an injury. Hitting over 500. He's going to stay in the lineup. So this Auburn team looks really good too. Those are kind of my major thoughts from yesterday and what we've seen today so far. Any thoughts from you, Kevin?
Yeah, so just to kind of recap on some of those teams that you mentioned, I agree. Texas is just solid. We've talked about them a lot. They have three good pitchers, so you've got Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You can win any game against any team you play if you're Texas, and they don't have a weakness at a position. They're solid all across, 1 through 9. Good defensively, good up the middle. Tenney, Rodriguez, Mendoza. So they're just a really good baseball team, and this is going to be a Texas team that can contend for a national championship. When you move to LSU, it's really hard for me to gauge LSU. The first, 5, 6 games, they looked really good. Then the last 7, 8 games, they've been very inconsistent in their play. But then also look at the different lineups that they use. Since Stanfield got hurt, they've just been they're very inconsistent in their play. And I know Chris Stanfield's not a player um, that you look at and say, gosh, he's the difference. That being said, their lineup just seems to be very uneasy right now without him. Not just in the outfield, but just in the everyday batting order. So, and to me, baseball, your batting order matters a lot, because you get different pitches based on situations that happen during a game. Some guys hit fastballs better. Some guys have a good eye. Some guys are meant to drive in runs. And that's why, to me, it's very hard for me to gauge LSU right now. I think they go through this every year with Jay. I mean, he tends to play a lot of different lineups, and you tend to see a lot of different things and have a lot of different opinions. And I think I want to see how it settles out once he gets into conference season, and if we see the consistency in that lineup and what that's going to mean to them. I do think that their Friday, Saturday, Sunday pitchers are going to be solid. I think Evans has been really good. Um, he was a little shaky in the first week. To me, in the second week, he was better. Started off a little slow, but then this week he was dominant. I think Schmidt has been good. I think Cooper Moore's pitched well enough to you can say he's going to be a solid Saturday guy. So I think they're a solid team there. Um, I do like Auburn, like you mentioned, and McCrane. They've moved him to shortstop now. We thought they might move Rimbert to short, leave McCrane at second, but that's actually been the opposite. So they played McCrane this weekend at short, and to me that has really solidified their batting order. And their starting pitching has been really good. Marciano's been really good. Saunders was good today, and Petrovic has been really solid in that as a 3 starter. So Auburn's again a solid team. When I look at some of the teams that I've kind of followed closely in this part of the season, Georgia's kind of what we thought they were. They're going to score a lot of runs, and their pitching is going to be up and down. They lost midweek game this week 10-9 that they led multiple times, but their pitching couldn't finish it and couldn't get done. So they're kind of what they've been. Great hitting team, can score a lot of runs, but they're only going to go as far as their top 3 pitchers can go. I think Volko, their number 1 guy has been, I think he's solidified himself as a Friday night guy. After that, I think they're still suspect in their 2 starters. Mississippi State's a team. You mentioned Texas as the best team in the SEC. I would put Mississippi State right there with them. I think Mississippi State has proven that they're solid, and even in that game that they played against UCLA, that they lost in extras. This weekend they're not playing a team that's really any good, and they're pounding them. Won today, 26-0. Their lineups hit and they're pitching well. McPherson pitched well yesterday. Stone pitched today. So I think I think, with what Mississippi State has done, I would put them at the top of the league there too, right there with Texas. Maybe Auburn just kind of a notch below. Um, Florida's another team this week that, they played Miami last weekend and won the two games in that series. Sunday was a rainout, and then lost last night to High Point, and they're down 6-0 to High Point tonight. We coming into the season, we questioned their batting lineup. Could they hit well enough for them to win? Good pitching, and that the hitting is kind of taken a turn this week the other way. So only scored two last night, again getting shut out tonight. So I think again that puts the question marks back on that Florida team. I'd put them middle of the pack in the SEC. Arkansas is starting to show a little bit more in their batting order. Micah New is played well this weekend for them, and they've had Alois continue to hit well along with Helfrich. But they've had some other guys hit the ball well. Stewart's came on and been inserted as a starter in the outfield. Pitching has been good. So I would put Arkansas in that top 5 or 6 teams in the SEC. And then Oklahoma, like we've talked about them a lot, they continue to play really, really well. Mercurius pitched again today and threw 6 innings of shutout baseball. So I like Oklahoma. I don't know where they're going to end up, but I think they're in the top 8 in the conference for sure, and a team that we did not place there early. Their pitching's been really good, and they've got a good lineup too. So they're playing Santa Clara this weekend and won the first couple of games in that series. So I like Oklahoma. Again, if I was just going to break it down, I would say Texas right there at the top, Mississippi State right there with them. I think I like Auburn, Oklahoma, what they're doing. I think Georgia's more in the middle with where they're at. LSU, I just so unknown. They're just so up and down. And again, I just want to see the consistency of their lineup. Tennessee, they're beating Wright State this weekend, but they won a couple of 1-run games against them. So I would put Tennessee kind of there in a lot of the unknown too. Ford continues to play well for them, and their pitching is good. Coons last night gave up 3 runs. Mack pitched well today and got a win. So I think Tennessee's kind of unknown, but they're going to be there. They're going to beat some teams. And I would put Georgia in that group too. Probably just overall record, I would go with you and say that Missouri is the biggest surprise. And that being said, I don't even know if they'll win 10 SEC games, but they're better. And that's the biggest surprise to me is I think they will compete in the SEC in baseball. Your thoughts about any of those other teams?
Yeah, Georgia's going to hit a lot of home runs at home. Their pitching staff has looked serviceable. I have not had a chance to watch a ton of Mississippi State, but they played probably two of the toughest games of the year this past week. A Sunday game against UCLA that was extremely close, and then traveled to Hattiesburg to play Southern Miss, who's a really good ball team. Those are those are 2 tough games that they were right there in. When you're a good team, eventually those games are going to start to fall. And then with Oklahoma, we were both a little higher on them than it seemed like everybody else who talks SEC baseball to start this season. And then especially after that first weekend when they won the Shriners Classic, still talked highly about them. It seemed like it got everybody else around the country a few more weeks to start talking about them. And now they're number 12 in the country. Really complete pitching staff right now, especially with their weekend rotation. So I really like this Oklahoma team. I know on Tuesday, after we talk hoops, we'll drop our new SEC power rankings, but Oklahoma is going to be pretty high up on that list for me, and I'm sure they will be for you as well. And I think Missouri's placement may get a few people with how highly I think of them. I'm not sure they're going to win 20 SEC games, but Missouri may play their way into postseason play this year.
That is possible.
Yeah.
They will
Well,
be knocking on the door.
well, that is going to be a wrap for Southern Sports Gumbo today. We will be back on Tuesday. We may drop another episode before then, but we'll go live on Tuesday, and we'll be breaking down a little deeper March Madness with college basketball. We'll talk some college baseball, and then conference tournaments for basketball this week, and SEC baseball starts. So, any last minute thoughts, Kevin?
No, I think again we hoops March Madness is here. It's going to be an exciting time. We need to do some stuff there. Pick our brackets, pick our seeds. Who's going to go? Maybe we talked this week also about what are the mid majors that we think can win some games in the tournament, make a run.
Yeah, love it.
College baseball, we get into the conference season. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just agreeing. I love the mid-major talk. There's quite a few I think can make some noise in March Madness this year. So eager to talk about
Yep.
that, and we'll come at you guys with a great show on Tuesday. So remember to like, follow, subscribe.